Chapter 1. The girl in the concrete tomb shelter smelled like bleach and desperation. Elena Thorne sat on the edge of a narrow cot, her fingers wrapped around a chipped mug of lukewarm coffee. Outside the barred window, February rain slashed against cracked pavement, turning the city streets into rivers of reflected neon. She'd been here 3 weeks, long enough to learn the rhythm of survival. Wake before dawn, claim a shower slot, avoid eye contact. Keep your belongings close. Long enough to stop asking why her life had fallen apart. She was 26 and had nothing. No apartment, no job, no family who'd return her calls. The trust fund her mother had promised $2 million, locked away since childhood, had vanished the day she'd confronted her stepfather about the forged documents. He'd called her a liar. Her mother had chosen him. The lawyers had smiled and shredded her claims. Now she lived in a women's shelter on the south side, sleeping between a former nurse with PTSD and a college dropout who cried every night. Elena had stopped crying weeks ago. She sipped the bitter coffee and stared at the rain. Somewhere out there, people lived in penthouses with heated floors and wine cellars. Somewhere, her stepfather was spending her inheritance on vacations and mistresses. Somewhere, her mother was pretending Elena had never existed. She set down the mug and pulled on her only coat, a thin gray thing that had been stylish once, back when she'd had a closet full of clothes. Back when she'd believed the world was fair. Tonight, she had a night shift stocking shelves at a 24-hour grocery store. It paid cash under the table. It kept her fed. It kept her moving. She walked out into the rain. The store was empty except for fluorescent lights and the hum of refrigeration units. Elena moved through the aisles mechanically, stacking cans of soup, rotating expired milk, wiping down shelves. Her manager, a bored man who reeked of cigarettes, had stopped checking on her hours ago. She was alone. She liked it that way. A T2 in the morning. The back door rattled. Elena froze, a jar of pasta sauce in her hand. The store had alarms, cameras, locks. No one should be trying the back entrance at this hour. The rattling stopped. She exhaled slowly and set down the jar. Then, the door exploded inward. Glass and metal shrieked as the lock tore free. A man staggered through the opening, his clothes torn, his face pale as death. Blood soaked his shirt dark, arterial blood that pooled on the tile floor. He collapsed against a shelf, gasping, his eyes wild. Lock it, he choked out. Lock the door, now. Elena's heart hammered. She should run, scream, call the police. Instead, she moved. She slammed the door shut and shoved a steel storage rack against it, her hands shaking. The man slumped to the floor, his breath coming in ragged bursts. Up close, she could see the damage. Deep gashes across his chest, claw marks that looked almost inhuman. What happened to you? She whispered. He looked up at her, and she saw his eyes. They were gray, storm gray, ancient gray, eyes that had seen centuries and still burned with something fierce and unyielding. Run, he said hoarsely. They're coming for me. If you stay, you die. Elena's mouth went dry. Who's coming? House Corvus. He coughed, blood flecking his lips. Rival bloodline. They'll kill anyone who. The front windows shattered. 3 figures dropped through the broken glass like nightmares made flesh. They wore black, their movements too fast, too fluid. Their eyes gleamed red in the fluorescent light. Vampires. The word slammed into Elena's mind with absolute certainty. She didn't know how she knew. She just knew. The wounded man pushed himself upright, his body trembling with effort. Corvus dogs, he spat. You break the concord. This is neutral ground. The tallest vampire smiled, revealing elongated canines. Neutral ground ends when a traitor bleeds on it. Sinclair. The wounded man Sinclair bared his own teeth. I committed no treason. You refused the king's order. You sheltered the rogue. That is treason enough. Elena's back hit the shelf. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This wasn't real. Vampires weren't real, but the blood was real. The shattered glass was real. The 3 predators stalking toward them were real. Sinclair moved. One moment he was bleeding on the floor. The next, he was a blur of lethal grace, driving his fist through the first vampire's chest. The creature screamed a sound like metal tearing and exploded into ash. The other 2 attacked in unison. Sinclair fought like a wounded animal, all desperation and brutal efficiency. He ripped one vampire's throat out with his bare hands, but the 3rd got behind him, sinking claws into his shoulder and slamming him into the ground. Elena didn't think. She grabbed a steel shelf bracket and swung it like a bat, cracking it across the vampire's skull. The creature hissed and whirled toward her, eyes blazing. She was going to die. Sinclair surged upward and tore the vampire's head clean off. Silence. The store was a ruin of blood and ash and broken glass. Sinclair stood in the center of it, his chest heaving, his eyes still burning with that terrible gray light. He turned to Elena. "You're human," he said, as if that explained everything. "Ah, yes." Her voice sounded far away. "You shouldn't have helped me." "You're welcome," she shot back, shock turning to anger. He stared at her. Then, impossibly, he smiled, a brief, pained thing that made him look almost human. "What's your name?" "Elena." "Elena." He tested the word like it was precious. "Dangerous. You just made yourself a target. House Corvus doesn't forgive witnesses." "Then what do I do?" Sinclair looked at the ruined door, the shattered windows, the dawn beginning to pale the eastern sky. "You come with me," he said quietly, "or you die." Elena looked at the shelter she'd left behind, the life that had already crumbled to nothing. She looked at the vampire with storm-gray eyes and wounds that should have killed him. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere old. Somewhere even Corvus won't dare follow." He held out his hand. Elena took it and stepped into the dark. Chapter 2. The House of Forgotten King's car was older than Elena's grandmother would have been. Sinclair drove in silence, his hands steady on the wheel, despite the blood still seeping through his torn shirt. The sky lightened from black to bruised purple as they left the city behind. Winding through forgotten industrial districts and into wooded hills Elena had never known existed so close to downtown. She should have been terrified. She should have jumped from the moving vehicle and run screaming. Instead, she watched him. His face was sharp-featured, aristocratic. The kind of face you'd see in old portraits hanging in museums, all angles and intensity. But it was his stillness that unsettled her most. He didn't fidget, didn't shift in his seat. Even bleeding and exhausted, he held himself with a control that felt ancient. "How old are you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. 463. He said it like someone else might say 32. Elena's breath caught. "That's impossible." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "You saw 3 vampires die tonight. You're driving with a 4th. What exactly do you still find impossible?" "Fair point. Why did they attack you?" His jaw tightened. "House politics. Blood feuds that predate your country's founding. I sheltered someone House Corvus wanted dead. Why? Because she was innocent. Because their king is corrupt. Because some laws deserve to be broken." He glanced at her, those gray eyes searching. "You risked your life for a stranger tonight. You understand." Elena looked away, watching trees blur past the window. Did she understand? She'd spent weeks feeling like the world had betrayed her. Maybe that's why she'd helped him, because she recognized that same cornered desperation in his eyes. "Where are we going?" she asked again. "My home." "What remains of it?" They turned onto a road that wasn't on any map. The forest grew denser, older. The trees twisted into shapes that seemed to watch them pass. Then the woods opened, and Elena saw it. A house. No, a manor. 3 stories of stone and iron, with Gothic arches and stained glass windows that caught the dying moonlight. Gargoyles perched on the corners. Ivy crawled up the walls like possessive fingers. It looked like something from another century. Another world. Sinclair parked and moved to open her door, wincing as the motion pulled his wounds. "You're still bleeding," Elena said. "I'll heal." Slowly, without proper blood. "But I'll heal." That word blood sent ice down her spine. "Do you need to feed?" He met her eyes, and something dark flickered there. "Yes. But not from you. Never without consent. That's the first law of my house." "Your house?" "House Sinclair. Or what's left of it." He gestured to the manor. "We numbered to 100 once. Now I'm the last." The weight of those words settled over her like a shroud. The last of his bloodline. 4 centuries old and utterly alone. She followed him inside. The interior stole her breath. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow. Chandeliers hung dark and silent, no electricity, she realized. Candles flickered to life as Sinclair moved through the entrance hall, though she never saw him light them. The walls were lined with portraits, men and women in period clothing, all sharing those same storm-gray eyes. His family, all dead. "The bedrooms are upstairs," Sinclair said, his voice echoing. "3rd floor's safest, thickest walls, reinforced doors. Choose any room. They're all empty." "Where will you be?" "The cellars. I need darkness to heal properly." He paused at the base of a grand staircase, swaying slightly. There's preserved food in the kitchen. The water still runs, though it's cold. Don't open the front door for anyone. Don't leave the grounds. House Corvus will be hunting you now. Elena's stomach dropped. How long do I have to stay here? Until I can negotiate safe passage for you. A week. Maybe 2. His eyes were growing heavy, the gray fading to something dimmer. I'm sorry you're caught in this. You saved my life too, she said quietly. In that store. You could have run. I don't run. He said it like a vow. House Sinclair stands. Even when we stand alone. He turned toward a door beneath the staircase toward the cellars and the darkness he needed. Sinclair, Elena called. He looked back. Thank you. For not leaving me to die. Something shifted in his expression. Something vulnerable and surprised, like he'd forgotten what gratitude sounded like. Rest, Elena. You're safe here. I give you my word. Then he was gone, descending into shadow. Elena stood alone in a vampire's manor. Surrounded by centuries of death and silence, she should have been panicking, crying, demanding answers. Instead, she climbed the stairs. The 3rd floor was a warren of bedrooms, each one frozen in time. Some held 4-poster beds with moth-eaten curtains. Others had writing desks covered in dust, letters still waiting to be finished. She chose a room at the eastern corner, small, simple, with a narrow bed and a window that faced the forest. She sat on the bed and finally let herself shake. Vampires were real. Ancient houses and blood laws and creatures who could move faster than her eyes could track. She'd watched 3 of them die. She'd hit one with a metal bar. She'd trusted the 4th with her life. Elena pulled off her shoes and lay back on the bed, still wearing her coat. Outside, dawn broke properly, spilling gold through the window. Somewhere below, Sinclair was bleeding in the dark, healing by inhuman rules. She didn't understand. She closed her eyes, for the first time in weeks. She felt safe. It was terrifying how much that truth meant. Safer in a vampire's lair than she'd ever felt in her mother's house. Safer with a 400-year-old predator than with the family who'd stolen her future. What did that say about her old life? What did that say about her? Sleep pulled her under like a tide, and Elena Thorne dreamed of storm-gray eyes and ancient halls where the last king stood guard over a kingdom of ghosts. Chapter 3. The rituals of the Angelina woke to absolute silence. No traffic. No voices. No hum of electricity or distant sirens. Just the whisper of wind through old stone, and the creak of the manor settling around her like a sleeping giant. She sat up, disoriented. Afternoon light slanted through the window. She'd slept for hours. Her body ached from the thin mattress, and her mouth tasted like copper and fear. Then memory crashed back. Vampires, blood, Sinclair's gray eyes and his promise of safety. She was still wearing yesterday's clothes, still in a stranger's house, still being hunted by creatures that shouldn't exist. Elena stood and moved to the window. The forest stretched endlessly, a sea of bare branches and shadow. No roads visible. No neighboring houses. They were completely isolated. Her stomach growled. Right. Food. Sinclair had mentioned the kitchen. She made her way downstairs, trailing her hand along the banister. The portraits watched her past generations of Sinclairs with those piercing eyes. She paused at one, a woman in an 18th century gown, her expression fierce and proud. Lady Catherine Sinclair, 17 for a 1809, 70 years. A full human lifetime. How long had she been vampire before the end? The kitchen was surprisingly modern, updated sometime in the last few decades, though still without electricity. A gas stove sat cold and unused. The pantry held canned goods, dried pasta, preserved vegetables, enough to survive on. Elena found crackers and ate them mechanically, her mind spinning. She needed answers. Needed to understand what she'd stumbled into. She needed to check on Sinclair. The door beneath the staircase stood closed. Elena approached it slowly, her heart hammering. What did vampires look like when they slept? Were they corpse still? Did they breathe? Did she have the right to invade his privacy just to satisfy her curiosity? She pressed her ear to the door. Silence. Sinclair? She called softly. Nothing. Worry twisted in her gut. His wounds had been severe. What if he hadn't healed? What if he was dying down there in the dark? She opened the door. Stone steps descended into blackness. The air smelled of earth and age and something else, something metallic and sharp. Blood. Sinclair? She tried again, louder. Still nothing. Elena grabbed a candle from the hall and started down. The cellar was vast, brick archways stretched into darkness, creating a labyrinth of storage rooms and wine cellars. Her candle threw dancing shadows across walls lined with empty bottles and forgotten furniture. She followed the smell of blood deeper, her pulse racing. Then she found him. Sinclair lay on a stone bench in what looked like a meditation chamber. His shirt was gone, revealing the full extent of the damage. The claw marks across his chest were deep to deep. They should have been healing, but the edges were black, the flesh around them gray and necrotic. Poison. Elena's medical knowledge was limited, but she recognized infection when she saw it. Sinclair. She knelt beside him, setting down the candle. Wake up. He didn't move. His chest barely rose. His skin was cold, corpse cold. Was that normal? Or was he dying? She pressed her fingers to his throat, searching for a pulse. Nothing. Then she remembered vampires didn't have heartbeats. Their blood moved by different rules. Please, she whispered. Please don't be dead. His eyes snapped open. Elena gasped and jerked back. Those gray eyes were completely black now, the pupils blown wide, and for a terrible moment she saw the predator underneath the civilized veneer. Then recognition flickered. The blackness receded. Elena. His voice was a rasp. You shouldn't be down here. Your wounds aren't healing. They're getting worse. He looked down at his chest, his expression grim. Corvus blades, coated in nightshade extract. It slows regeneration. What do you need? Time, darkness, blood. That word again. Elena swallowed hard. Where do you get blood? I have reserves. Medical blood bags, stored in the far cellar. He tried to sit up and failed, collapsing back with a hiss of pain. Can't reach them. Tell me where. He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his eyes. Through the west arch. Third door on the left. There's a refrigeration unit gas-powered. You'll find bags marked O negative. Elena stood. How many do you need? 2, maybe 3. She grabbed the candle and ran. The refrigeration unit hummed in the darkness, an incongruous modern sound in the ancient cellar. Elena yanked open the door and found rows of medical blood bags, neatly labeled and dated. Some were months old, some were years. How long had he been preparing to survive alone? She grabbed 3 bags and ran back. Sinclair was sitting up now, his breathing labored. He took the first bag with shaking hands, bit through the plastic seal and drank. Elena looked away, her stomach churning, but she didn't leave. She heard him drain the first bag, then the second. When she finally glanced back, color was returning to his skin. The black edges of his wounds were fading to angry red. Better? She asked. Better. He set down the empty bags, his movements still careful. You're not screaming. Would that help? A ghost of a smile. No. Elena sat on the floor across from him, her back against the cold stone wall. Tell me the truth. How bad is it? Bad enough that I'll need another day to heal fully. Maybe 2. He met her eyes. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I didn't sign up for anything. My life fell apart, and then you crashed through a door bleeding. She pulled her knees to her chest. At least you're honest. That's more than I can say for my family. Sinclair tilted his head, studying her. What happened to your family? The question surprised her. Vampires didn't ask about human problems, did they? But then, she knew nothing about vampires except what horror movies had taught her, and those were clearly wrong. My stepfather stole my inheritance, she said flatly. $2 million my mother left in trust for me. When I found proof, he destroyed it. She chose him over me. I ended up in a shelter. Sinclair's expression darkened. That's why you helped me. You recognize betrayal. Maybe. Elena looked at the empty blood bags. Or maybe I'm just tired of being powerless. You weren't powerless tonight. You fought. I hit someone with a metal bar. That's not exactly. You faced 3 vampires and didn't run. Most humans freeze. You acted. He leaned forward slightly, wincing. That takes strength, Elena. Real strength. Warmth spread through her chest, unfamiliar and dangerous. When was the last time someone had seen her as strong instead of broken? Get some rest, she said, standing. I'll check on you tonight, Elena. She paused. Thank you. For the blood. For. He gestured vaguely. For staying. Where else would I go? But they both knew that wasn't the real answer. She climbed back up to the world of daylight, leaving the vampire to heal in his darkness, and wondered when exactly she'd stopped being afraid of him. Chapter 4. Threads of the Forgotten. Elena spent the rest of the day exploring, the manor revealed itself in layers. The grand rooms on the first floor, ballroom, library, formal dining hall, were magnificent and abandoned. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light. Sheet-covered furniture created ghostly silhouettes. It was a house built for dozens of people that now held only one. The loneliness was suffocating. She found the library by accident, following the scent of old paper and leather. Floor to ceiling, shelves held thousands of books in languages she recognized and some she didn't. Latin, French, something that looked like Arabic, but it was the personal collection that caught her attention. One shelf held journals decades worth, their spines labeled by year: 1562, 1603, 1701, 1849. She pulled out the most recent, 2019 to 2024. She shouldn't read it. This was private, sacred. She opened it anyway. The handwriting was elegant, precise. The entries were sparse, sometimes months between them. March 15, 2023. House Corvus moves against the rogues again. King Nathaniel grows bolder. The Concord weakens daily. I fear what comes next. September 2, 2023. Found another one. A girl barely turned, abandoned by her maker. The 8th this year. Corvus creates them like weapons and discards them like trash. I gave her what sanctuary I could. January 7, 2024. She's dead. Corvus found her despite my protection. They left her ashes on my doorstep as a warning. I am tired of warnings. I am tired of standing alone. Elena's throat tightened. The girl he'd sheltered, the one House Corvus had wanted dead. She'd been just one of many he'd tried to save. How many had he lost? She kept reading. February 28, 2024. Attacked at the grocery store. Wounded badly, nightshade poison. A human woman helped me. Elena Thorne. She looked at me like I was worth saving. I cannot remember the last time someone looked at me that way. Her hands trembled. That was yesterday. He'd written about her. She's upstairs now, sleeping in Catherine's old room. I should send her away. Instead, I find myself hoping she stays. Elena closed the journal carefully, her heart pounding. She shouldn't have read it, but now she knew the truth. Sinclair was just as lonely as she was, just as desperate for connection, just as afraid of hoping. She returned the journal to its place and left the library before she could read more. That evening, she made dinner, canned soup heated on the gas stove, eaten at a massive dining table meant for 20. The silence pressed against her ears. Outside, darkness fell like a curtain, and the manor came alive with settling sounds and creaking shadows. She was washing her bowl when she heard footsteps on the stairs. Sinclair emerged from the cellar, moving more easily than before. He'd changed clothes, a simple black shirt and dark trousers. His wounds were still visible through the thin fabric, but the necrotic edges were gone. "You're healing," Elena said, slowly. He leaned against the doorframe, studying her. "You've been exploring." It wasn't a question. "Your house is beautiful." Sad, but beautiful. It was built to hold a bloodline. Now it's a mausoleum. He moved to the window, looking out at the dark forest. "I should sell it. Let someone tear it down and build something modern. Something without ghosts. But you won't." No, his voice was soft. "This is all that remains of them. If I let it go, they disappear completely." Elena joined him at the window. "What happened to them? Your house?" Sinclair was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his words were measured, careful. "We followed the old laws. Consent for turning, protection for the newly made, no feeding from the unwilling. Those rules made us weak in the eyes of houses like Corvus." He touched the glass, his reflection ghostly. "In 1847, they orchestrated a massacre, claimed we were harboring traitors. By the time the other houses intervened, 163 of my bloodline were ash, and you survived. I was away, traveling in the Orient, seeking alliance with the Eastern courts." His jaw tightened. "I came home to ruins and silence. The survivors scattered, some joined other houses, some went rogue, some walked into the sun. Within 50 years, I was the last." Elena's chest ached. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. That doesn't make it hurt less." He looked at her then, really looked, and she saw the raw grief he kept buried under centuries of control. "No," he admitted, "it doesn't." They stood in silence. Two people who understood what it meant to have your foundation ripped away, to be left standing in the ruins, wondering if survival was worth the cost. "Why do you keep fighting?" Elena asked. Why shelter the rogues? Why stand against Corvus when you know you'll lose? Because someone has to remember what we were supposed to be. His voice was fierce now, passionate. Vampires were never meant to be monsters. We were meant to be guardians, keepers of knowledge, protectors of the night. House Sinclair believed that. We died for it. You're still dying for it. Better to die with honor than live as a predator. Elena turned to face him fully. You called yourself a predator. In the store. You warned me. I am a predator. I drink blood to survive. I'm faster and stronger than you could ever be. I could kill you without effort. He held her gaze. But I choose not to. Every day, every moment, I choose. That's the difference. Corvus doesn't choose. Corvus revels in the hunt. They turn humans for sport, feed without consent, treat mortality like a game, his hands curled into fists. Their king, Nathaniel, believes vampires are the superior species, that humans exist to serve us. And you believe? I believe we're all just trying to survive. Some of us do it with grace, some with cruelty. He smiled sadly. And some of us do it alone, in empty houses, pretending we're still fighting a war that ended centuries ago. Elena reached out without thinking and touched his arm. He froze, staring at her hand like it was something precious and dangerous. You're not alone right now, she said quietly. No, he whispered. I'm not. They stood there in the darkness, connected by that simple touch, and Elena felt something shift between them. Something fragile and terrifying. Something that felt like the beginning of trust, or maybe the beginning of something far more dangerous. Sinclair pulled away gently. You should rest. Tomorrow I'll start teaching you how to defend yourself. If Corvus finds this place, you'll need to know how to survive. Will they find us? Eventually. They always do. He left her standing by the window, descending back to his darkness. And Elena realized she wasn't afraid of that answer. She was ready to fight. Chapter 5. The hunter's circle. Elena woke to the sound of breaking glass. She bolted upright, her heart slamming against her ribs. Moonlight streamed through her window. She'd slept through the entire day again. Outside, an owl shrieked. And then came another crash from somewhere below. Someone was in the house. She grabbed the fireplace poker she'd left by her bed, Sinclair's suggestion from their conversation 2 nights ago, and crept to the door. Her hands shook as she eased it open. The hallway was dark, silent. Then she heard voices. Can smell him. He's here somewhere, bleeding and weak. Check the cellars. The human woman too. King Nathaniel wants them both. Corvus. Terror flooded her veins. She needed to warn Sinclair. Needed to. A hand clamped over her mouth. She thrashed, swinging the poker wildly, but an arm locked around her waist like an iron band. Hot breath touched her ear. It's me, Sinclair whispered. Don't scream. He released her, and she spun to find him dressed in dark clothing, his expression grim. The wounds on his chest were still visible, but healing. He was armed, twin blades strapped to his back, silver in the moonlight. How many? She breathed. 4, maybe 5. They're searching the ground floor. His eyes were hard, tactical. We need to move, now. Where? There's a passage. Old escape route from the Purge Wars. Leads to the forest. He took her hand, his grip. Steady. Stay close. Stay silent. If I tell you to run, you run. Understand? Elena nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. They moved through the darkness like ghosts. Sinclair led her down a servant's staircase she hadn't known existed, his movements fluid and soundless. Below, she could hear the vampires destroying her sanctuary, overturning furniture, ripping through rooms. Find them. Someone snarled. The king wants Sinclair's head before dawn. They reached the 2nd floor landing. Sinclair froze, pulling Elena behind a column. A vampire emerged from the library, his nose lifted, sending the air. Fresh blood, he murmured. Recent. The human is close. Sinclair's jaw tightened. He looked at Elena, then at the vampire, weighing odds. The vampire's head snapped toward them. There. Sinclair shoved Elena toward a door. Run. 3rd door on the right, hidden panel behind the mirror. Go. Not without you, go. The vampire lunged. Sinclair met him mid-leap, their bodies colliding with bone-crushing force. They hit the floor in a tangle of limbs and flashing blades. Blood sprayed across the wallpaper. Elena ran. She found the 3rd door, slammed it shut, and spotted the mirror. Her hands fumbled across the frame, searching for the mechanism. Behind her, the sounds of combat intensified, snarls and crashes, and Sinclair's voice raised in something that might have been a battle cry. Her fingers found a catch. The mirror swung inward, revealing a narrow stone passage. She hesitated. Sinclair was still fighting. Still, the door exploded inward. A female vampire stood in the opening, her eyes crimson, her smile predatory. "Hello, little human. You're coming with us." "I don't think so." Elena grabbed a heavy candlestick from a side table and hurled it. The vampire dodged easily, laughing. "Spirit. I like that. King Nathaniel will enjoy breaking you." She moved with inhuman speed. Elena threw herself through the mirror passage. Stone walls closed around her as she ran blindly into darkness, the vampire's laughter echoing behind her. The passage twisted, descended, the air growing cold and damp. She had no light, no weapon, no idea where she was going. Behind her, footsteps, fast, getting closer. The passage opened suddenly into a wider chamber. Moonlight filtered through cracks in the ceiling. Elena spun, searching for an exit, another passage. Anything. The vampire emerged from the darkness, no longer smiling. End of the line. "Sweetheart." Elena backed against the wall, the poker raised uselessly. This was it. She was going to die in a vampire's cellar, alone and terrified. And Sinclair would find her corpse. And a blade erupted through the vampire's chest. She gasped. Black blood bubbling from her lips and disintegrated into ash. Sinclair stood behind her, his face splattered with blood, not all of it his own. His breathing was labored, his wounds reopened and bleeding fresh. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "No, I know." Elena's legs gave out. She slid down the wall, shaking. "You came." "Of course I came." He knelt beside her, checking her for injuries with swift, efficient hands. "Did she touch you? Bite you?" "No, you got here first." Relief flashed across his face. Then he pulled her to her feet, his grip firm. "We need to keep moving. The others will have heard the fight." "How many did you?" "3. 2 more upstairs. But more will come." He led her deeper into the passage, moving fast. "Corvus doesn't send small hunting parties. They send armies." "Why do they want me?" Sinclair glanced at her, something dark in his eyes. "Leverage. If they have you, I'll surrender." "They know that now." Elena's breath caught. "Why would you surrender for me?" He didn't answer, just kept moving, pulling her through the labyrinth of passages until they emerged into the forest. Cold air hit her face. Trees loomed overhead, skeletal against the star-filled sky. Sinclair stopped, listening. His expression was grim. "What is it?" Elena whispered. "They're surrounding the manor. At least 20 vampires. Maybe more." He looked at her, his gray eyes fierce. "I need you to listen very carefully. There's a town 8 miles east. Follow the stream, it leads straight there. Find the sheriff. Tell him I'm not leaving you." Elena knows. She grabbed his arm. "You're wounded. You can't fight 20 vampires alone. I've fought worse odds, and nearly died. Look at you, you're bleeding again. You're exhausted. And I'm not abandoning you to face this alone." Her voice cracked. "You said House Sinclair stands. Fine, then we stand together." Sinclair stared at her like she'd grown a second head. "You're human. You'll die. So will you." "I've been dying for centuries. I'm used to it." He touched her face gently, his hand cold. "You have a life ahead of you. A real life. Don't throw it away for what? For you?" Elena caught his hand. "You're the first person in months who's treated me like I matter. Who's seen me as strong instead of broken. You think I'm going to run away and let them kill you?" "Yes," he said simply. "Because I'm asking you to." A hull split the night. "Close. Too close." Sinclair's expression hardened. He pulled 2 silver daggers from his belt and pressed them into her hands. "Stay behind me. Don't engage unless you have no choice. Aim for the heart or throat, anywhere else won't stop them. Sinclair, if I fall, you run. Promise me." Elena looked at the daggers, their weight foreign in her palms. Looked at the vampire who'd given her sanctuary and asked for nothing in return. "I promise." She lied. He smiled grimly, like he knew. Then the forest came alive with glowing red eyes. And House Corvus emerged from the shadows like a tide of nightmares. 20 vampires. Maybe more. And Sinclair stepped forward to face them alone. Chapter 6. Blood and Ash. First vampire attacked without warning. Sinclair moved like lightning, his blade singing through the air. The creature's head separated from its body before Elena could blink. Ash exploded into the night wind, then chaos erupted. They came from all sides, a coordinated assault meant to overwhelm through sheer numbers. Sinclair spun and struck, his movements a deadly dance of precision and fury. 2 more vampires fell to ash. 3. But there were too many. A vampire broke through Sinclair's defense, rushing straight for Elena. She saw crimson eyes, extended fangs. Hands curved into claws, she thrust the dagger forward. The blade sank into the vampire's chest with a sickening crunch. The creature screamed, staggered, and collapsed into ash before her eyes. Elena stared at her hands. She'd just killed something. Someone. Elena? Behind you. She spun. Another vampire lunged. This time her body moved on pure instinct, ducking low, driving the blade upward into the throat. More ash. More death. Her mind went blank. Training she'd never had took over, fueled by adrenaline and terror. She moved in Sinclair's shadow, guarding his back, striking when the opening appeared. 4 vampires down. 5. But Sinclair was slowing. Blood poured from reopened wounds. His movements grew sluggish, defensive. A vampire's claws raked across his shoulder, spinning him around. Enough. The voice cracked like thunder. Every vampire froze. A figure emerged from the tree's tall aristocratic, with hair like spun gold and eyes that burned like coals. He wore a tailored suit that looked obscenely expensive and utterly out of place in the forest. Power radiated from him in waves that made Elena's skin crawl. King Nathaniel. Sinclair spat, straightening despite his wounds. Come to do your own dirty work for once? The king smiled, revealing perfect fangs. I came to witness the end of House Sinclair. Tell me, Adrian, does it hurt? Being the last? Knowing your precious bloodline dies with you? Adrian. Elena filed the name away. After all this time, she finally knew Sinclair's first name. My house died with honor, Adrian said coldly. Yours will die in shame. Bold words from a bleeding corpse. Nathaniel's gaze slid to Elena. And what's this? You've taken a pet? How domestic. Adrian shifted, placing himself between them. She's under my protection. Protection? Nathaniel laughed. You can barely stand. You're outnumbered 20 to 1. And you think you can protect anyone? He gestured lazily. Kill him. Bring me the girl. The vampires advanced. Adrian raised his blades, his stance unwavering despite the blood soaking his shirt. Elena, run, now. No, that wasn't a request, I know. She stepped beside him, daggers raised. But I'm done running. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Pride, maybe. Or resignation. Together then, he whispered. Together. The vampires charged. What happened next was a blur of violence and desperation. Adrian fought with the fury of for centuries, every strike calculated to maximize damage. Elena fought like a cornered animal, all instinct and survival. They moved together, covering each other's weaknesses, creating a barrier of blades and determination. But it wasn't enough. A vampire slipped past Adrian's guard and seized Elena by the throat, lifting her off the ground. She choked, her vision darkening, her daggers falling from numb fingers. Got you. The vampire hissed. Adrian roared a sound of pure rage that didn't seem human. He drove his blade through 2 vampires to reach her, moving with speed that shouldn't have been possible for someone so wounded. He ripped the vampire's arm clean off. Elena fell, gasping. Adrian caught her with one hand while decapitating her attacker with the other. Ash rained down around them. I told you to run, he growled. And I told you no, she coughed. He almost smiled. Then a blade punched through his chest from behind. Adrian's eyes went wide. He looked down at the silver blade protruding from his sternum, confusion crossing his face. Then pain. Adrian. Elena screamed. Nathaniel stood behind him, his hand on the blade's hilt. 300 years I've waited for this moment. 300 years of your self-righteous preaching, your pathetic mercy, your weakness disguised as honor. He twisted the blade. Adrian gasped, black blood bubbling from his lips. House Corvus remembers the old ways. We are apex predators. And you, Adrian Sinclair, are extinct. He yanked the blade free. Adrian collapsed. Elena dove to catch him, his weight bearing them both to the ground. His blood soaked through her clothes, too much blood, even for a vampire. No, 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 she whispered, pressing her hands to the wound. Stay with me, Adrian, stay with me. His eyes were dimming, the gray fading to something darker. Should have, run. Shut up. Just hold on. Nathaniel loomed over them, wiping his blade clean. Take the girl. Leave Sinclair to bleed out. Let him spend his last moments knowing he failed. Hands grabbed Elena, hauling her away. She fought, screaming, reaching for Adrian. His hand shot out and caught her wrist. For a moment, their eyes met. His were nearly black now, his breathing shallow. But his grip was iron strong. Blood oath, he rasped. Elena Thorne, I bind you to House Sinclair, my protection, eternal, my name, your shield. Power exploded outward. Light erupted from Adrian's chest, not white, but deep crimson shot through with silver. It wrapped around Elena like chains, like armor, burning symbols into her skin that glowed and faded in an instant. The vampires holding her shrieked and released her, their hands blistering where they'd touched her. Nathaniel's eyes widened. What have you done? Adrian smiled through blood-stained teeth. Anchored her. She's House Sinclair now. Kill her, and you violate the Concord. The other houses will destroy you. You can't. That ritual requires understanding dawned on Nathaniel's face. You've bound yourself to a human? That's a death sentence. Without feeding from your own bloodline, you'll fade in weeks. Then you'd better kill me quickly. Adrian's grip on Elena loosened. Before I change my mind about mercy. He passed out. Elena knelt over him, her skin still tingling from whatever he'd done. The vampires circled, but didn't approach. Afraid now, uncertain. Nathaniel stared at Adrian's unconscious form, rage warring with calculation on his perfect face. Retreat, he finally snapped. We'll deal with this complication later. But the king, I said, retreat. His voice was thunder. The ritual is done. She's untouchable until we can convene a council. The vampires melted into the forest like shadows. Nathaniel looked at Elena one last time, his expression promising violence. Enjoy your protection while it lasts, human. Blood oaths can be broken. And when they are, he smiled. I'll drink you dry myself. Then he was gone. Elena sat in the sudden silence, cradling Adrian's head in her lap. His breathing was faint. His skin was gray. He'd bound himself to her, given her protection that might cost him his life. Why? You idiot, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. You beautiful, stupid idiot. The forest stood silent, and Elena Thorne, newly bound to a dying house, held the last Sinclair, and wondered how she was going to save him. Chapter 7. The price of protection. Elena didn't know how she got Adrian back to the manor. Adrenaline. Maybe desperation. The supernatural strength that sometimes came when people needed to lift cars off loved ones. She dragged him through the forest, her muscles screaming, his dead weight nearly impossible to manage. He was so cold. Too cold. She got him to the cellar, to that stone bench where she'd first found him healing. Laid him down as gently as her shaking arms could manage. In the candlelight, he looked like a corpse, skin gray, lips blue, the chest wound still weeping black blood. Don't die, she whispered. Please don't die. His eyes fluttered open, just barely. Elena, I'm here. I'm right here. She grabbed his hand. Tell me what to do. The blood bags, will they help? No, his voice was barely audible. Not enough. Need living blood from my own bloodline. Her stomach dropped. But you're the last of your house. There is no bloodline. Exactly. He managed a bitter smile. Clever, wasn't it? Nathaniel knew. The oath would kill me, slower than a blade, but just as certain. There has to be another way. There isn't. His eyes closed. I bought you time, safety. That's enough. It's not enough. Elena's voice cracked. You can't just. You saved my life multiple times. And now you're telling me to watch you die? Better me than you. That's not your choice to make. Adrian's eyes opened again, focusing on her with effort. What would you have me do? Feed from you? A human can't sustain a vampire for long. It would drain you, kill you, and I'd still fade, then turn me. The words hung in the air like a grenade. Adrian stared at her. What? You heard me. Elena's heart hammered, but her voice was steady. Turn me. Make me vampire. Then I'd be your bloodline, right? Then you could feed from me and survive. No, the word was absolute. Absolutely not. Why not? Because turning is agony. Because you'd be tied to the night forever. Because you'd have to drink blood to survive and watch everyone you've ever known grow old and die. His breathing was ragged. Because you're 26 years old and you deserve to live, Elena. Actually live. Not this. This existence. This existence just saved my life. And I won't let you throw that life away to save mine. They glared at each other, both breathing hard, the weight of impossible choices crushing them. Elena spoke first, her voice quieter. Tell me what happens to you if you don't feed. Adrian closed his eyes. I'll grow weaker, sleep longer. Eventually I won't wake at all, just fade into a kind of stasis. Not death, not life, just nothing, forever. Horror crawled up her spine. That's worse than dying. Yes. How long do you have? A week. Maybe 2, if I don't exert myself. A ghost of humor touched his lips. I've already exerted myself considerably. Elena looked at the wound in his chest, still open, still bleeding. At the vampire who'd stood against 20 of his own kind to protect her. Who'd bound himself to her, knowing it would kill him. Who'd given her everything and asked for nothing in return. There has to be something I can do, she said. There is. Adrian's hand found hers, his grip weak. You can leave. Go to that town I mentioned. Start over. Use the protection I gave you. No vampire can touch you without violating the Concord. The other houses will honor it, even if Corvus won't. And you? I'll face the darkness. I've been running from it for 300 years. Maybe it's time to stop. Tears blurred Elena's vision. I don't want you to stop. I don't want you to fade into nothing in some cellar, alone and forgotten. I won't be forgotten. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. You'll remember me. That's more than most vampires get. She wanted to scream, to rage against the unfairness of it all. Instead, she stood and moved to the medical refrigerator, pulling out the remaining blood bags. What are you doing? Adrian asked, buying time. She brought them back, tearing one open. You said these aren't enough. Fine, but they'll keep you stable while I figure out another solution. Elena, drink. That's an order. His eyebrows rose. You're ordering me? I'm House Sinclair now, aren't I? That blood oath thing you did. So, yes, I'm ordering you. She pressed the bag to his lips. Drink. A smile ghosted across his face, genuine this time, almost warm. You're terrifying when you're determined. Good. Now drink before I stab you myself. He drank. Elena watched the color slowly return to his skin, the worst of the gray fading. It wasn't enough she could see that. The chest wound was still open, his breathing still labored. But it was something. When he finished the second bag, his eyes were clearer. Better? She asked, marginally. He studied her face. You're not going to leave, are you? No, even though staying might get you killed? Even though, Adrian sighed. You're the most stubborn human I've ever met. I've had good teachers. My stepfather was an expert at not giving up. Elena sat beside him, her back against the cold stone wall. Tell me about the blood oath. What did you actually do? He was quiet for a moment. I bound my house's protection to you. It's an ancient ritual, one of the oldest vampire laws. Anyone who harms you now harms House Sinclair. Even though my house is just me, the other vampire houses are bound by tradition to honor it. And the glowing symbols? The mark. Proof of the binding. It's written into your blood now. Any vampire who touches you will sense it. How long does it last? Until I die, or until I release you. His voice dropped. I won't release you, Elena, even if you ask. That protection might be all that keeps you alive when I'm gone. Elena's throat tightened. You keep talking like you're already dead. I'm practical. You're giving up. I'm accepting reality. He turned his head to look at her. You should too. No, Elena met his eyes. You spent 300 years fighting for what you believed in. Fighting for rogues and outcasts and people no one else would protect. You don't get to stop now just because the fight got personal. This isn't your fight. You made it my fight when you saved me. When you sheltered me. When you bound yourself to me. She leaned closer. I'm not letting you fade, Adrian. I'm not letting House Sinclair end like this. Then what do you suggest? Elena thought of the journals in the library. The centuries of knowledge Adrian possessed. The other vampire houses that supposedly existed. You said other houses have to honor the Concord. What if we went to them? Asked for help? They won't intervene in house matters. Even to save the last Sinclair. Even to oppose Corvus? She grabbed his hand. You said Nathaniel is corrupt. That he's breaking the old laws. Surely some of the other houses care about that. Adrian studied her for a long moment. There's one house that might listen. House Ashford. They hold the Eastern Territories. Lady Victoria Ashford and I were allies once, before the massacre. Then we go to her. Elena, the journey alone could kill me in the state. Then we leave tonight. Before you get weaker. Elena stood, energy flooding through her. Purpose. Where is she? Boston. 3 days travel if we're careful, then we have 3 days to keep you alive. She pulled him to his feet, supporting his weight. Can you make it upstairs? Adrian looked at her, this human woman who'd appeared in his life like a storm, who'd fought vampires and refused to run, who was now demanding he live when dying would be so much easier. With you? He said softly. Yes. They made their way up from the cellars together, leaving the darkness behind. And Elena realized somewhere in the chaos, she'd stopped seeing him as a vampire. She saw him as Adrian, and that scared her more than anything House Corvus could do. Chapter 8. The road between worlds. They left at midnight in Adrian's car, the same ancient vehicle that had carried Elena to safety days ago, now loaded with medical blood bags, weapons, and what little supplies they could carry. Adrian drove despite his wounds. Elena didn't argue. She could see the determination in the set of his jaw, the way he gripped the wheel, like it was the only thing keeping him anchored to consciousness. Talk to me, she said, as they merged onto the highway. Keep yourself awake. I'm not going to fall asleep at the wheel, Elena. Humor me. A faint smile. What would you like to discuss? Anything. Everything. She shifted to face him. Better. Tell me about Lady Victoria. What's she like? Adrian was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the dark road. Brilliant, ruthless when necessary. She turned in 1692 during the Salem trials, saved from the gallows by her maker. Built House Ashford from nothing into one of the most powerful bloodlines on the East Coast. Were you close? Once. We shared ideals. Both believed vampires should evolve beyond base predation. His expression darkened. After the massacre, she sent condolences. But no aid. No justice. Why not? Politics. House Corvus had grown too powerful. Opposing them meant war, and Victoria isn't the war-making type. She prefers strategy, patience. So why would she help now? Because Nathaniel has grown bolder, breaking the concord, creating rogues, targeting humans openly. Adrian's hands tightened on the wheel. The other houses tolerated his excesses when they were contained. But binding a human to a dying house through blood oath, that violates ancient law. Victoria will see it as a threat to the entire system. Elena absorbed this. So I'm not just your protection. I'm evidence, yes. And if she doesn't help, then we run, hide. Pray Corvus doesn't find us before I fade. He glanced at her. You could still leave, you know. The oath protects you even if we part ways. We've been over this, I know. But I need you to understand what you're risking. His voice was raw. If Corvus catches us, they'll find a way around the oath. Torture you for information. Use you against me. And when I'm finally gone, they'll kill you just to make a point. Then we don't get caught. Adrian laughed short and sharp. Your optimism is terrifying. Someone has to balance out your fatalism. They drove in silence for a while. The highway stretched endlessly, dotted with distant headlights. Most of the world was asleep, unaware that vampires existed. That ancient houses played their political games in the shadows. Elena had been part of that oblivious world a week ago. Now she could never go back. Do you regret it? Adrian asked suddenly. Helping me that night in the store? Elena considered. Her old life had been a ruin, betrayed by family, homeless, surviving day to day. This new life was dangerous, impossible, built on a foundation of blood and darkness. But it was also the first time in months she'd felt alive. No, she said honestly. Do you regret saving me? Every moment. At her hurt look, he clarified. Not because of you. Because you deserve better than this. Better than me. That's not your decision to make, isn't it? I bound you to a dying house, Elena. I've made you a target for creatures that will hunt you for centuries. What part of that is fair to you? The part where someone finally saw me as strong enough to fight beside them. Elena's voice was fierce. You didn't treat me like something to protect or control or use. You treated me like an equal, like someone worth trusting. Adrian's expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through his careful control. You are worth trusting. You stood against 20 vampires when you could have run. You're sitting here now, when any sane person would have fled. He paused. You're extraordinary, Elena Thorne. I just wish I'd met you in another life. One where I could offer you something other than danger and death. Her chest ached. You've offered me more than you know. They didn't speak again for miles, but something had shifted between them. Some acknowledgement of what was growing in the silence, something neither of them could afford but neither could deny. They stopped at dawn at an abandoned rest area. The sky bleeding pink and gold. Adrian moved stiffly from the car, his face pale. The chest wound had stopped bleeding but hadn't closed. Elena could see exhaustion settling over him like a shroud. "You need blood," she said. "I have the bags." "That's not working fast enough." She rolled up her sleeve. "Feed from me." "Absolutely not, Adrian," I said. No, his voice was sharp. "I won't cross that line. Not with you." "Why not?" "You said it yourself, consent matters." "I'm giving consent, and I'm refusing." He turned away, but she caught his arm. "Is it because you're afraid you'll hurt me? Or because you're afraid you'll like it?" He went very still. When he looked back at her, his eyes were nearly black, the gray, consumed by something primal and hungry. Both, the air between them felt electric. "Dangerous." "I trust you," Elena said quietly. "You shouldn't, but I do." She stepped closer, her heart pounding. "You've had a dozen chances to hurt me, to use me, to take what you wanted without asking. And you haven't, not once." "Elena, you don't understand what you're offering, then explain it to me. Make me understand." Adrian's control was fracturing. She could see it in the tension of his jaw, the way his hands curled into fists. Feeding is intimate, more than physical. When a vampire drinks from someone willing, there's a connection, a sharing of sensation, emotion, memory. It's why my house only fed from consenting partners. Why? It meant something. And you're afraid if we share that, it'll change things between us. "I'm afraid," he said hoarsely, "that it already has." The confession hung in the air like smoke. Elena knew she should step back, create distance, keep this professional, transactional. Two people cooperating to survive, nothing more. Instead, she moved closer. "The wound in your chest isn't healing. You can barely stand. And we have 2 more days of travel ahead of us." She met his eyes. "I'm not asking you to turn me. I'm not offering forever. I'm offering enough to keep you alive until we reach Boston. And if I can't stop, you will, because that's who you are." She touched his face, feeling the coldness of his skin. "Please, Adrian, let me help you." He closed his eyes, a tremor running through him. When he opened them again, the hunger there made her breath catch. "Not here," he said roughly. "Not like this. If we do this, it will be done properly. With care, with respect." "Where?" He looked at the rising sun, then at the car. "There's a safe house, 40 miles north. We can reach it before full daylight." Elena nodded, her pulse racing. "Then let's go." They drove in charged silence, every mile bringing them closer to a line once crossed could never be uncrossed. Elena told herself this was practical, necessary, just survival. But when she caught Adrian watching her with those ancient, hungry eyes, she knew they were both lying to themselves. This was something else entirely, and God help them both. Neither of them wanted to stop it. Chapter 9. Blood and Truth Safe House was a cabin buried deep in state forest. So hidden, Elena would never have found it without Adrian's guidance. Inside, it was sparse but clean, a single room with a bed, a small kitchen, blackout curtains already drawn. Adrian had prepared this place long ago, one of many bolt holes scattered across the region for emergencies. He lit candles with shaking hands. Elena watched him move through the space, noting how carefully he held himself, how each breath seemed to cost him. The drive had drained what little strength he'd had left. "Sit," she said, guiding him to the bed. "Before you collapse." He obeyed without argument, a bad sign. Adrian never surrendered control easily. Elena knelt before him, her hands on his knees. "Tell me what to do. How does this work?" Adrian's eyes were nearly black, the hunger consuming the gray, but his voice remained steady. "The wrist is traditional, cleanest, least intimate." He swallowed hard. "I'll need you to stay calm. Fear makes the blood taste bitter, and it'll be harder for me to stop." "I'm not afraid. You should be." His hands trembled as they cupped her face. "Elena, once I start, the instinct is to take everything, drain you dry. Most vampires don't feed from the willing because the connection makes it harder to stop. Not easier. But you're not most vampires." "I'm starving, wounded, desperate." His thumb brushed her cheek. "I could kill you and not mean to." "You won't." "How can you be so sure?" "Because you're Adrian Sinclair, last of your house, keeper of the old laws." She took his hand and pressed it to her racing pulse. "Because you've spent 400 years choosing honor over hunger. This is just one more choice." He closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against hers. "If I hurt you, I'll never forgive myself." "Then don't hurt me." She pulled back enough to meet his gaze. "I'm ready." Adrian lifted her wrist to his lips, his breath cold against her skin. It'll hurt at first. Then, it won't. The venom has properties. Euphoric. You'll feel. He paused. You'll feel everything I feel. Everything? Everything. Elena's pulse thundered. She nodded. Adrian's fangs extended longer than she'd seen before, wickedly sharp. He pressed a kiss to her wrist, gentle and reverent. Then he bit down. Pain lanced through her bright and sharp. Elena gasped, her body tensing. But Adrian's free hand found hers, fingers interlacing. And then the venom hit. Oh God. The pain dissolved into warmth that spread through her veins like honey and lightning. Her senses exploded. She could feel Adrian's hunger, his desperate relief, his iron will holding back the instinct to take more. And beneath it all, something deeper. Something that made her breath catch. Loneliness. Centuries of it. The ache of being the last, of standing watch over ghosts, of believing he'd never matter to anyone again, and now gratitude, wonder, the terrifying realization that she mattered, that this human woman who'd crashed into his death spiral mattered more than his next breath. Elena, his thought, his voice. Inside her mind, Adrian, she felt his shock ripple through the connection, felt him trying to pull back, to sever the link. Don't. She tightened her grip on his hand. Stay. This is dangerous. You're seeing too much. I don't care. Let me see you. And she did. She saw the massacre, his family burning, screaming, dying while he was an ocean away. Saw the guilt that carved itself into his soul. Saw the centuries of fighting alone, saving rogues who didn't survive. Standing against Corvus, knowing he'd lose eventually. Saw the moment in the grocery store when their eyes met, and he'd thought, this one I'll save. Saw the journal entry he'd written about her, the hope he'd tried to crush, that maybe, finally, he wouldn't be alone. Tears streamed down Elena's face, not from pain, from the weight of his truth, laid bare and bleeding. I see you, she whispered through the connection. All of you. And you're not alone anymore. Adrian's control shattered. He pulled her into his lap without breaking the seal, one arm wrapped around her waist, holding her like something precious and breakable. She felt his hunger surge, felt how easy it would be for him to drain her, how much his body screamed for it, and she felt him refuse, felt him choose her over his survival, her life over his relief, her trust over his desperate need. He was shaking when he finally withdrew, his fangs retracting, his tongue sealing the wound with swift efficiency. Elena slumped against him, dizzy and euphoric and utterly undone. Elena, his voice was wrecked. I'm sorry. I took too much. I felt you in my mind, and now you chose me. She touched his face, making him look at her. You were dying and you still chose me. Always. The word was barely a whisper. I'll always choose you. Their faces were inches apart. His lips were stained with her blood. His eyes were gray again, that beautiful storm gray that had first caught her attention in the grocery store. Adrian? She breathed. Don't. His hand cupped her face. Don't say what you're thinking. Don't make this harder than it already is. Why not? Because I'm 400 years old, and I'm dying. Because you're human and you deserve a normal life. Because this, he gestured between them. This can't be anything but tragedy. What if I don't care? You should. What if I told you that in that connection, I felt what you felt? She leaned closer. What if I told you I feel it too? Adrian's breath caught. Elena, she kissed him. It was soft at first, tentative, her lips against his, tasting copper and something darker. But then his control broke completely, and he kissed her back. With 4 centuries of loneliness and longing, his hand sliding into her hair, pulling her closer, the connection flared back to life. She felt his desire, his terror, his absolute certainty that he was damning them both, and his complete inability to stop. I know, she thought, against his lips. I know, and I don't care. You should run from me. I should do a lot of things. She kissed him again. But I'm staying. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena saw something new in Adrian's eyes. Hope, terrifying, dangerous, impossible hope. We should rest, he said hoarsely. Boston is still a day away. Victoria won't wait. Will you be strong enough? After, she gestured at her wrist. Yes, his voice was stronger already, the gray returning to his skin. Your blood is remarkable. I haven't felt this alive in decades. The blood oath. Does that change things? Perhaps he traced the faint mark on her wrist where he'd bitten. Or perhaps you're simply extraordinary. They lay down together on the narrow bed, Elena tucked against his chest, Adrian's arm wrapped protectively around her. Outside, the forest whispered its secrets. Inside, two people who should never have mattered to each other clung to something fragile and new. What happens in Boston? Elena asked quietly. Victoria will either help us or send us away. If she helps, we might survive. If not, he pressed a kiss to her hair. Then we run until we can't run anymore. And if she asks what I am to you? Adrian was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful. What do you want to be? Elena thought of the connection they'd shared. The truth laid bare between them. The choice he'd made to stop feeding, even when it might cost him everything. Everything, she whispered. I want to be everything. His arms tightened around her. Then that's what you are, everything, and God help us both. They slept in each other's arms as dawn broke over the forest. Two souls bound by blood and choice, and neither could say which bond would destroy them first. Chapter 10. The choice. Boston rose from the darkness like a city of ghosts. Adrian drove them through the old district cobblestone streets and brick buildings that predated the revolution. The streets were empty at 3 a.m, only shadows and streetlights bearing witness to their arrival. House Ashford holds court in the Warren building, Adrian said, his voice tight. Victoria owns the entire structure. 12 floors of offices by day, Vampire Court by night. Elena studied the building as they approached all Art Deco elegance and dark windows. How do we get in? We ask. He parked and turned to face her. Elena, once we step inside, there's no turning back. Victoria will demand answers. The other houses will learn what Nathaniel did. This becomes political, and that's bad. It's dangerous. For both of us. His hand found hers. You can still walk away. I'll face Victoria alone. We've been over this, I know. But I need to hear you say it. That you choose this. That you choose. He stopped, vulnerability flashing across his face. You, Elena finished. I choose you, Adrian. Stop asking me to leave. He kissed her, then swift and fierce and desperate before pulling back and stepping from the car. The building's entrance was locked, but Adrian pressed his palm to a hidden panel. Something clicked. The doors swung open silently. Inside, the lobby was all marble and shadow. A woman stood waiting, tall, dark-skinned, wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than Elena's stolen inheritance. Her eyes were amber, ancient, and sharp as knives. Adrian Sinclair. Her voice was silk over steel. I wondered when you'd come crawling back, Victoria. Adrian inclined his head. Thank you for seeing us. I'm seeing you because you've created a spectacular mess. Those amber eyes slid to Elena. And this is the human. The one bound to a dead house. Elena lifted her chin. Elena Thorne. And House Sinclair isn't dead while he lives. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Spirit, I see why you kept her. She turned, gesturing for them to follow. Come. The council is waiting. They rode a private elevator to the 12th floor. Elena's heart hammered. Beside her, Adrian was stone still. Every inch the ancient vampire facing judgment. The elevator opened onto a conference room that stole Elena's breath. 7 vampires sat around an oval table, each one radiating power that made her skin crawl. They represented the old houses: Ashford, Montgomery, Chen, Volkov, Okonkwo, Rothschild, Durand. Centuries of accumulated influence and immortal politics, and at the table's head, smiling like a snake, sat King Nathaniel Corvus. Adrian. Nathaniel's voice dripped false warmth. How delightful. I see the wound didn't kill you after all. Adrian's hand tightened on Elena's. Disappointed? Merely surprised. Nathaniel's eyes found Elena. And you brought your pet. How inappropriate. She's not a pet. Adrian's voice was ice. She's House Sinclair. Bound by blood oath. Protected by the Concord. Yes, about that. Victoria took her seat at the opposite end. You've violated about 6 different protocols, Adrian. Blood binding a human? Without council approval? That's grounds for dissolution of what remains of your house. Elena's stomach dropped. Wait, silence. Victoria's amber eyes pinned her. Humans don't speak in council unless directly addressed. Then I'm addressing her, Adrian said sharply. Elena has every right to speak. She's the evidence of Nathaniel's crimes. Crimes? Nathaniel laughed. I attacked a known traitor. That's house business, not council concern. You poisoned your blade with nightshade. You sent 20 vampires to kill him on neutral ground. You violated the Concord openly. Adrian stepped forward. And you've been doing it for years. creating rogues, feeding without consent, targeting humans. The old laws mean nothing to you. Old laws, Nathaniel sneered, written by weak vampires who forgot what we are, predators, apex hunters. We should rule humanity, not hide from it. Murmurs rippled around the table. Some vampires looked disturbed, others intrigued. Victoria raised a hand for silence. These are serious accusations, Adrian. Do you have proof? I have testimony. From rogues Corvus created and abandoned. From humans he's violated. From hearsay, Nathaniel interrupted. You have nothing but the word of a dying house and his human toy. Then let me testify, Elena said. Every eye in the room turned to her. Victoria leaned forward. You wish to speak before the council? Yes. Elena's voice didn't shake. I was there when Corvus attacked. I saw them violate neutral ground. I saw King Nathaniel stab Adrian with poisoned blades while gloating about breaking the Concord. She's lying, Nathaniel said flatly. Humans lie, especially ones bound to desperate vampires. The blood oath doesn't create loyalty, Adrian countered. It creates protection. Elena speaks freely. Does she? Nathaniel smiled. Or does she speak to save you? Tell me, human, what did Adrian promise you to secure your loyalty? Elena met his eyes. Nothing. He promised me nothing. He saved my life, sheltered me, and bound himself to me, knowing it would kill him. All he's ever done is choose my survival over his. How touching. Nathaniel's voice dripped sarcasm. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Immortality? Power? I get to stand beside someone who still believes in honor. In choosing what's right over what's easy. Elena's voice grew stronger. Something you clearly don't understand. Silence fell. Then Victoria laughed, a rich, genuine sound. Oh, I like her. She's got more spine than half this council. Her expression sobered. But that doesn't change facts. Adrian, you bound a human without permission. That violates protocol. I did what was necessary to protect her from Corvus. Which brings us to the real question. Victoria steepled her fingers. What do you want, Adrian? Sanctuary? Justice? Revenge? Adrian looked at Elena, then back at the council. I want House Corvus held accountable. I want the Concord enforced. And I want. He paused. I want permission to properly rebuild House Sinclair. With Elena, shock rippled through the room. You want to turn her, Victoria said. Make her your bloodline. Yes. No. Nathaniel snarled. The council won't allow it. We don't create vampires to save dying houses, actually, said Lord Chen quietly. We do. It's in the Concord. Any house reduced to a single member may petition to create a new bloodline, from consenting adults, Lady Okonkwo added. Is she consenting? Every eye turned to Elena again. Her mouth was dry. This was it. The choice Adrian had refused to make for her. Turn or stay human. Immortality or death. His world or nothing. She looked at Adrian at the hope and terror warring in his gray eyes. I consent, she said clearly. I choose House Sinclair. I choose him. Absolutely not. Nathaniel surged to his feet. This is a mockery, this is council law, Victoria interrupted. And you, Nathaniel, are in no position to object. The council has heard testimony of your violations. We'll be conducting a full investigation. On what grounds? On the grounds that you attempted to murder the last Sinclair and violated neutral ground to do it. Victoria's smile was sharp. Adrian, your petition is granted. You may turn Elena Thorne and rebuild your house. Consider it. Reparation for the loss we allowed to happen in 1847. Adrian's relief was palpable. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Victoria stood. The moment she's turned, both of you answer to this council. You'll rebuild House Sinclair properly. Follow the laws. Report regularly. And if you step out of line, I'll end you myself. Understood? Understood. Then we're adjourned. Victoria waved a hand. Take her somewhere private. Make it quick. And Adrian? Don't make me regret this. They left the building in silence. Elena's mind spinning. In the car, Adrian finally spoke. You don't have to do this. The council granted permission, but I won't force you. We can find another way, Adrian. Elena took his hand. I already chose. In the safe house. In the forest. The moment I refused to run. She smiled. Stop giving me outs. I just need you to be certain. I am. She leaned close, pressing her forehead to his. Teach me to be what you are. Show me your world. Let me stand beside you for more than a handful of years. It'll hurt. The turning. I know. You'll never see sunlight again. Never taste human food. Never I'll have you. She kissed him softly. That's enough. Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her like she might disappear. Then let's go home. I'll do this properly. The way my house always did. With care, with reverence, with love. That last word hung between them, finally spoken. Finally true. I love you too, Elena whispered. They drove back through the darkness to the manor. To the place where House Sinclair had begun centuries ago, and would begin again tonight. And when dawn broke over the hills, Elena Thorne closed her human eyes for the last time. Held in the arms of the vampire who'd chosen her over everything, when she opened them again, the world was sharper, stranger, illuminated by the night's hidden colors, and Adrian was there, smiling, no longer alone. Welcome home, he whispered. Welcome to House Sinclair. Elena smiled back, fangs sharp and knew she'd finally found where she belonged.